everyone, Ruby Rovell here, a rather awkward unravelling of the autonomous nervous system, here to talk to you today about Sun and Mars in opposition to Uranus in Taurus. As Uranus is likely to be experienced as the rather disruptive baddie in this particular astrological equation, I want to begin by exploring some of the impacts that he may be having on your life. Excuse me, I'm a bit sniffly at the moment. I've been dog walking in the rain all day, which has been very nice. So Uranus is the planet of revolutions, earthquakes, and upheavals. It is his job to seek out anything in the world that has become too stagnant, too stupefied, too settled in its ways, and to demand that it experience some kind of renewal of energy, that what was moribund and rotting away needs to be electrified and jolted back into life, or just completely changed and destroyed so that it can make space for something else. It is the great renovator of the astrological pantheon. The problem is that Uranus is very mismatched when it is placed in the sign of Taurus. When we talk about the relationship between a planet and the sign or house that it is in, we are talking about the relationship between a particular thing and the environment in which it is located. And just as when we have a boat, that boat is going to be most useful if we are using it to sail over a body of water. It's going to be an absolute waste of a vehicular resource if it's the only thing at our disposal if we happen to be navigating a mountain range or wading through a big desert. And it's a bit like this with Uranus in Taurus. What Uranus wants and what the energies of Taurus are predisposed to want are two very different things. Taurus likes to maintain structures. It is a consolidator of our earthly circumstances. Taurus likes to find circumstances and things in life that provide it with a sense of material comfort, groundedness, stability, and well-being, and to dig in its roots like a cat that's found a comfy spot on a pillow and stay there for as long as possible. It does not like change. Even necessary change is something that it can revolt against and procrastinate against doing for as long as possible. Taurus is a material girl living in a material world. Its ability to feel grounded is wholly dependent on how well it is structured, its material circumstances. If it manages to find a job that is steady, reliable, enjoyable to do, and which gives it a fixed salary that isn't likely to suddenly chop and change, then it will hold on to that job as long as possible. If it finds a house that it can afford, that it can maintain, in which it feels comfortable living in, then it's going to hold on to that house for as long as possible. If it finds a relationship and a wife or a husband or a spouse of some kind to share that house with it, who also gives it a sense of security, comfort, a partner that they can trust to be loyal, true, dedicated, and who isn't going to go running off at the slightest notice, then it's also going to want to hold on to that partner. So Taurus likes to keep and enclose and hold on to whatever gives it a sense that it is well rooted in the world. It doesn't like things to be chopping and changing and moving all about the place. Once it has something settled, it likes that thing to stay there and not be blown about by any little vacillation of change. And yet the problem is, when you have Uranus transiting through Taurus, it's like a hurricane going through a beautiful pastoral meadow, or barging its way through a neatly organized antique shop. Uranus looks at all of the comfort zones that Taurus has made for itself, all of these things that seem so sure and steady and certain and resistant to change, and it sends them into upheaval and chaos. It says, sure, I can see that you're comfortable there. However, I'm Uranus. I am a big, distant, impersonal god. I don't really care about your feelings. It's just my job to make sure that new life and new energy is constantly coming into the world. And right now, if I just let you carry on doing the same things you've always been done, let you carry on doing the same jobs, let you carry on living in the same place, let you carry on comfortably in the same relationships, you're never going to grow, you're never going to progress, you're never going to evolve, you're never going to go up to a new level. So it's my job to be that great big cosmic impish trickster and to fuck things up so that you have to do something else whether you like it or not. So Uranus in Taurus has a tendency to disrupt any of our efforts to kind of nail things down in life. Anything that we want to enclose and keep the same and hold on to, Uranus is going to make that very difficult for us, if not impossible. In those areas where we want to consolidate and maintain, he's going to demand that we instead have a revolution and that we reinvent ourselves and redesign ourselves and look for new things instead of just holding on to those things that are familiar and comfortable to us. And that's not really very nice. You know, there's a difference here between Uranus in a trine or a sextile, although Uranus is disruptive, whatever the aspect, and then Uranus in opposition, because during the opposition we experience Uranus as being our enemy, being our opponent, being a planet that is working against us. During a harmonious aspect, sometimes Uranus can throw changes our way, and we can feel very grateful. We can think to ourselves, oh yes, that's exactly the kick up the butt I needed. That's exactly the little change or electric jolt I needed from the universe to break out on my own and do something new. During the opposition, when it's opposing the Sun and Mars, we're more likely to feel like what we're aiming for and trying to achieve in the world, what our own wills and desire and goals are, is completely at odds with the changes that Uranus is making for us. And as with all oppositions, there is the difficult process of trying to balance these two things, of trying to say, okay, I have my own particular wants and desires and agendas, and then these are the problems and chaotic upheavals and big changes that Uranus is asking from me. How can I find a way of reconciling these two things? How can I honour my own personal needs and wants whilst also giving unto Uranus what is Uranus's? Now, some oppositions are more oppositional than others, and when we are enduring one of Uranus in Taurus's big, unchosen earthquakes, probably the last thing we're going to feel is a sense of serenity, evenness, and equipoise. When I'm talking about the balance, it's more about having an acceptance for the necessity of the pull and desires of the planets on both sides of the polarity. When there's a Uranus opposition between planets in fixed signs, there's a difficulty here because fixed signs do not like change. They like to maintain things as they are and preserve the things that are already in existence. It's probably not completely a bad thing to have the Sun and Mars in Scorpio during this opposition, because when Scorpio experiences some kind of threat or intrusion or disruption or upheaval in the world, its basic response is to go into survival mode, to batten down the hatches and consolidate all of its energies just towards preserving itself, which means it has a huge amount of strength and resolve and inner perseverance it is able to maintain when it has a feeling that its life is in some way crumbling around it. It may not like the earthquake, but it has the badass energy to hold its own and to keep on moving forwards through that earthquake. So I think in general, the best advice I can give to anyone experiencing a Uranus opposition is to be flexible, is to accept that there are going to be changes and disruptions and upheavals coming your way that you can't necessarily control or abate or halt the progress of, the best you can do is to be flexible and to adapt to them and to find a way of working with this energy or the obstacles that are coming into your life. Instead of fighting against them and thinking that's going to stop them, instead you resign yourself to their occurrence and allow yourself to bend with them instead of being broken by them. Now, as I've said in my other videos on oppositions, even though we're trying to maintain that sense of balance and equipoise between two warring planetary polarities, I think all of us are more likely to align with one side of the polarity in every opposition, to find that there is a particular planetary archetype we identify with, whilst we may project the other planet onto people or events or experiences that are coming at us from the external world. Some of us may identify with the Sun and Mars, going about our business and experiencing Uranus coming at us from the outside and fucking everything up, and us having to adapt and go into survival mode in response to the things that are coming at us. Others of us may be aware of being the Uranian party involved, may be aware that we are the ones who are trying to break free and seek new energy and create change and break away from stagnant structures in search of something new. It's fully possible for us to experience both sides during the full playing out of an opposition, but in general I think we have the tendency to identify with either one or the other side. But just to go into a bit more detail as to how you might experience that polarization, if you're identifying more with the Sun and Mars side of the polarity, you might just feel like you're going about your ordinary business, just trying to pursue your general objectives and aims in this world, and doing all the things you can to try and fulfill those needs and get your own way, you know, and then just constantly having to navigate all of the chaotic little changes and intrusions and earthquakes that you're encountering along the way. I've experienced a lot of this. The night before Mars began transiting in opposition to Uranus, I saw that transit was coming and I thought, I bet someone's going to have an accident. I bet there's going to be some kind of accident occurring soon that's going to have some kind of impact on me. That very night, my boss fell down a spiral staircase and injured themselves, so that for the next following 2 weeks, I've had to cover her jobs as well as my own. So that's a little example of how you might experience Uranus coming at you from the outside, of the chaos or the accidents or the problems going on in the lives of people around you, having a kind of knock-on ricochet effect on you, so that it is up to you to adapt to them. But there's been many other different upheavals that have been going on during that period as well, which is why it's taken me so long to make this video, is that every time I thought, oh, okay, I've got a bit of extra space now to actually try and catch up with my astrological work, some new job or crisis or event has suddenly popped up that has demanded I give it my full attention. So like I said during the beginning, when Uranus is in Taurus, or indeed when Uranus is in any earth sign, the disruptions and the intrusions that it tends to bring into our life are always going to be related to our material circumstances. So housing, jobs, finances, and any relationships we have that may be interconnected with those things, as well as also our physical health. It's not unusual for people to have accidents or to have sudden health scares that may disappear as quickly as they appear during this transit. And yet when that does happen, when Uranus does give us those sudden health scares, he may be actually offering us some kind of awakening. He might be just giving us a little prod to say, maybe you should take a bit more care of your health. I'm scaring you in order that you can bring more consciousness and objective awareness to an area that you may have been neglecting. Just as if we experience some kind of sudden financial crisis during the opposition, it might also be that kind of wake-up alarm call of you've maybe been a bit too loose and easy and frittering away your money, and now is the time to actually put a bigger plan in place for how you deal with it. But it can be very easy during Uranus opposition, if you are on the Sun-Mars side of it, to feel like everything's just constantly chopping and changing and moving around you without ever settling, that you can never really rest for a moment because you're always waiting for the next thing that's going to crumble and rumble or fall to pieces around you. Not all of those things are bad things, but you'll still be aware of some of that topsy-turviness. For instance, my housemate has recently moved out and I'm waiting for someone else to move in. My mother is in the process of moving out from my childhood home. So that's been very sad and has been a definite case in which something that had once felt like an eternal lasting Taurian foundation is now being taken from me completely. I'm not sure if you can hear this on the video. There's been a car alarm going off for a good portion of the video, which, to me is actually very, very good symbology of, there it goes again, how Uranus's intrusive energies work and creep into our lives in a fairly obnoxious and blunt force manner. But to look at the other side of the opposition, we might be feeling more like Uranus. We might be feeling that life has just been moving in a rather fixed and dull and stagnant way, that everything's become a bit too set in stone, everything's become a bit too boring and dull and routine, that everything feels so solidly set in place that there's no room for anything else to come in. It's almost like there's been this monolithic structure that's been created, which is fine, but which isn't going to give us any surprises, which isn't going to shock us into any new level of vitality or awareness, that isn't going to stimulate or unlock any doors within us that we haven't already opened by ourselves. If that's the case, some people during this transit might be feeling a bit stifled by their existing circumstances in their life. Things might feel humdrum and heavy and oppressive, and like they're not leaving any room for anything new or exciting or spontaneous or dramatic to happen. Someone might feel like they're getting itchy feet in their job, going through the same old motions, going through the same old routines, and having the sense that they're not making any progress, that they're not getting anywhere, and they almost feel just like quitting the job and just throwing caution to the wind and reinventing themselves and going out on their own and finding some new work that they would find more exciting. Someone might feel stuck in their living situation and decide, actually, maybe this neighborhood is getting a bit too small to hold me. Maybe I've explored all the options here, and if I remain, nothing's ever going to change, and I need to make a big break for it and move somewhere else if I want to have new experiences coming at me in my life. Some people might be feeling that level of stagnation in their personal relationships. They might be feeling, yes, I'm comfortable in the partnerships that I have in my life now. They are warming and fulfilling and familiar, and I know where I stand in them. But maybe I also feel I've taken them as far as they can go. Maybe I feel that if I just stay in this relationship, it's just going to carry on maundering and trudging along for the next 20 years without any actual developments and progress. Maybe I don't want that. Maybe I don't want to just persevere through the mundanity of the normal. Maybe I need something electrifying and new and shocking and interesting and energizing. And I have seen this happen already. I have seen a number of long-term relationships abruptly end during this transit so far, and that's generally how Uranus works. Uranus doesn't gradually move towards something. It doesn't think something through. It's more the kind of energy that just says, "Ah, hell with it all," and just runs out one day without the person who it's leaving behind having had any awareness that that was likely to happen. Uranus likes surprises. Uranus has a theatrical flourish for dropping a bomb on you out of nowhere and then kind of sitting back and watching with interest, a kind of scientific curiosity as to how you deal and adapt to the bombs that it has dropped. However, because of that opposition, I think if you are on that Uranian side of the polarity, if you are getting itchy feet, if you are feeling restless, if you are feeling that there needs to perhaps be some kind of shake-up or change or revolution or reignition of energy in your life, the Sun and Mars then may be forces that are holding you back in some way, and perhaps with good reason. You know, we all do need to make changes in our lives, and especially during Uranus transits, we need to find ways of making space for change, because if we don't, usually those changes get enforced upon us in sometimes very unpleasant and painful and traumatic ways. But I think in terms of maintaining that balance, sometimes the level of restlessness, of craziness, of volatility we feel within, that sense of urgency that something has to change now, can be dangerous. And I think the Sun and Mars can both offer a counterpoint that says, okay, fine, we can see that you need change, we can see that something needs to occur to give space for a part of you that was dormant but which is now waking up and wanting recognition. Maybe let's take some time to actually bring what you really want, what changes you're really after, into awareness, rather than just blowing everything up and running to create change for change's sake. The Sun is saying, let's actually shed light on the deeper mechanisms at play here behind what part of you is actually neglected, what part of you actually feels stifled and needs addressing, and what more conscientious ways could you find of addressing that instead of just exploding for exploding's sake, because that's what Uranus tends to do if he hasn't had time to be brought into conscientiousness. He knows that he wants change, but he doesn't always have a clear image of what that change should be. And therefore, especially when he's in opposition to Mars, there can be a tendency just to have these big, explosive, histrionic outbursts and just to lash out at everything around you, when the things you're lashing out at might actually be things that are giving you a lot of happiness and pleasure and a sense of strength and purpose, but which in that moment are just convenient patsies for you to throw your frustration at. So taking some time and asking yourself what changes it would actually be good for you to make in your life that would be true to your own personal individuality and calling in your life can be a good thing to do, to really shed light on the deeper mechanisms at play. Anyway, I'm going to finish that there. Once again, I apologize for the slow turnover with videos. Like I said, I've had double the amount of normal work to deal with at the moment, as well as many chops and changes in my own personal life, so that by the time I actually do have any time or space for astrology, the energy isn't that always there to give to it. I've also had my estrogen levels doubled, so taking some time to adapt to those inner physiological and hormonal upheavals is taking some time to adjust and recalibrate to as well. If any of you would like any personal astrological advice about how to deal or navigate with the changes that are occurring in your own life, feel free to message me at message me at thestarsunraveled@outlook.com. You can follow me on Instagram at astrologyandunderwear, and you can support me on Patreon at www.patreon.com/thestarsunraveled. I would love to hear how this transit has been affecting you, so please leave comments on the video so I can hear your stories. Please like, share and subscribe. The viewership of this channel has gone down quite a bit lately, so anything that you could do to help me reach a bigger audience again would be a big help. Anyway, enjoy riding the earthquake.